Hey folks, this is Billy DKY, the truth seeker that simplifies and demystifies. This is going to be a video you've been waiting for a long time, some of you. Into the mind of Dana White. And the reason I've been waiting, because my mind just really, I still caught in the details trying to make it come together, and all of a sudden it just clicked, and when it clicks, then that's when I post the video. So here we go. Before we get started on this, I don't really hate Dana White as much as it's going to seem in this video. And you got to remember, into the mind, basically, it's all the stuff you see about people that you don't like, but you never really say it out loud. And like I said, I don't really hate Dana White, even though a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be harsh and truthful. With that said, let's get on with it again. It's going to be a little harsh at times, but that's what Into the Mind's all about. Is you get in people's mind, you find out what their dysfunctions are. And it's really hard to point out when a person doesn't have any faults, which we all do. When a person has minimal faults, it's really hard to find things. When people have lots of faults, then you got all kinds of things to say, and that's where we're on with this one. Okay, preliminary stuff. MMA, Dana White has been good for the sport of MMA so far. And so, I mean, again, I'm beating up on him, but anyway. Dana White loves MMA, but he loves himself a lot more, and never forget that. It's not about you. It's not about MMA. It's really, at the end of the day, he loves himself more than anything. Keep that in mind. Point number 3 on the preliminary. MMA is bigger than Dana White and Zuffa, which Dana White and Zuffa, I don't think they realize that today, that MMA is a sport, not UFC, and eventually they will come to realize that in time. They just have to be the dominant force right now. And it's the same way if you look at companies that have been dominant in the past, you know, as AT&T or some, I don't care what company, you can use it as dominant, and then they didn't start, they got greedy, they stayed greedy, and then another company comes in to equalize it, so it'll equalize in time. Okay, understanding Dana White. The quickest way to understand Dana White is to understand that he isn't your friend or buddy, but a CEO of a company. Never forget that. Don't get caught up in watching the Dana White blog and thinking, oh, Dana White, man, he's my buddy, he's my best friend. He's not your best friend, he's a CEO of a company. As such, his loyalties lie with the company, not to the fighter. So if you watch the Dana White blog and you watch how the fighters treat Dana White, they're scared of him because they know that he's directing their future, and he knows it, and so they have to kiss his ass. Oh, whatever, you know, as long as it's a good show, you know, and they're always in his ass because he is the CEO of the company, and he'll fire him. Don't let him trying to be cool fool you. Don't let it fool you. Don White and Don King. Most people wouldn't accuse Dana White of having too much character, even though he does try to, you know, for the troops. And, I mean, he has these little pet causes and stuff. And you know, oh, my God, he's just such a caring person. Again, see the deeper person, not the facade. Next point, Dana White isn't more moral than Don King. He is just smarter at using people than Don King. He's more subtle. If you notice, he uses guys up and spits them out. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the way a corporate-minded person thinks. They think callously, harshly, and I'm not saying that ain't what it takes, but I'm just saying that's the way he thinks and that's what he does. Dana White is smart, but he's not smart enough to see how MMA is using him up. And in time, he'll see it. He's getting used up too. Okay, so let's get into the first chart here. Let's see, gluttony. We've all seen this with Dana White. You watch the Dana blog. Let me get the back pictures off here. Okay, this may be hard to see on some of you got the watching it from a phone or something. So basically, Dana White's got an ego, which again, that's one of your two fundamental problems is ego. Which when I say ego, I mean that sense of self. And it's really not a problem having an ego; it's having an elevated sense of self, you know, like arrogance and that kind of stuff. So he has an ego, and from ego comes greed. I want more. Since I have a sense of self, I want more for me. That's where greed kicks in. That's when ego becomes a problem. Well, I guess it's a problem here, but it's more of a problem here. It's starting to flower, if you will. And from ego, he wants pleasure, which is the second problem, human problem, which is, so anyway, he's greedy, wants more pleasure for him. So you watch the Dana White blog, and you notice he's always going to Pinkberry. You do not need pinkberry. Pinkberry is obviously pleasurable foods. All you need is plain and simple foods. If you don't realize that, go watch my other video on the ultimate in food, which I'll put the end of. There'll probably be 2 videos on it, so I'll do it at the end of that one if you want to watch it. And basically it's taste of bland. And then notice too, when you're greedy, when you've got an ego and you're always dealing with pleasure, you're silly, you act childish, you have childish behavior, emotionally uncontrolled, and other gluttonous behavior follows. So he's just a glutton, really, seriously. That's why he said people are always telling me I'm gaining weight. Well, it's because you are gaining weight and because you are a glutton. It's just that simple. So don't idolize somebody who's doing everything wrong, you know. You might idolize some of the fighters because they're not, but anyway. How he treats the fighters. Okay. Again, ego, greed. He only cares about fighters as much as he can use them. And so he loves the fighters. He loves the fighters he can control and use up, like Matt Hughes, Rich Franklin, Chuck Liddell. He hates the fighters he can't use up, like Matt Lindland, Dan Henderson, Randy and Tito. And Randy and Tito, he loves them when he can use them. He hates them when he can't. Back to the point on Dana White's not your buddy. He's a CEO. Rampage learned that in his episode with Dana White. You know, when he didn't want to do what Dana White told him to, and there's all kinds of conflict. So again, he only cares about fighters as much as he can use them up. And if he can't use you up the way he wants to, he'll just get another one. It's just like any corporate job. You ain't important. They'll use you up, spit you out, put a younger one right there in your place. You're just a cog in a wheel. Okay, again on Dana and Tito and Dana. Dana loves Tito when he can control him and use him. Dana hates Tito when he can't control him or use him up. Same with Randy, which I already really said that. Okay, Dana and fans. No, Billy, you don't understand. Dana actually loves the fans. It appears that way, don't it? Again. Here's the way it goes. You got the ego, and over here you got greed, and then he only cares about fans as much as he can make money off them and use them. So again, it's about using people. Notice that most of the fights are pay-per-view, not free. You know, if he really cared about the fans, he'd be trying to put it on free TV so he could get more fans. He's not caring about fans. It's about making the most money he can. Like I said, the only reason he makes them free is because he has no choice, because he has to. And if you notice too, on YouTube, he's immediately taking videos off YouTube and the like. If he really cared about the fans, if he was really a caring fan guy, what he would do, you know, for the people that couldn't afford the pay-per-view, let's say pay-per-view is a necessity for him to make money and stay alive as a company. Then what he would do is the next day he would have the videos out he'd have the MMA, he would have the event playing free the next day so people could see it who want to stay in touch. No, he keeps the pay-per-view going for weeks. So he don't give a shit about you. The sooner you learn that, the better off you'll be. And if you haven't seen it, there's a channel out there called Fight Politics where they talk about stuff like this. I think it's a Matt Lindland channel. So again, immediately takes videos off YouTube, and he's always, always busting any site that has his stuff on there. So, they say, well, we like to sue people, and he has one of these lawyers on the Dana White blog. Again, more and notice if he really loved you, he would put some damn advertisement on UFC.com, more advertising on UFC.com. Okay, the future of this is going to go another video. And again, I'll put a little pop-up bubble here so you can click it and go to the next video. I will also put it in the video response. And so, let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and start the next video because I don't want to get on a roll and have to stop. And again, down will be the video and a video response or a pop-up bubble. Until the next video, later folks.